All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the launch of Clementine Morrigan's Fucking Magic. My name is Willia Eaglehawk. I am the CEO of Revolutionaries. We're a very small publisher based in Australia. So it is 6 o'clock in the morning here for us and 4 o'clock in the afternoon for Clementine, which is awesome. And if you are joining live, let us know what time it is where you are, where you're joining from. Welcome, Clementine. I'm so excited to dive into your amazing book with you today. Oh, yay, matching. the first two copies in the world. Very cool. How is it feeling to be releasing Fucking Magic officially for the second time?
I'm so excited. Yeah, I mean, this book is one of the favorite things that I've ever written. And I wrote it between the years of like 2017 and 2020. And I was like really diligently writing that zine during those years. And it was this huge body of work that I was really proud of. And I had a book deal for it that I was really excited about, and I lost it due to cancellation dramarama. And so I ended up self-publishing the book because I was like, this book is too important to me to just like, So I still fought for the book, and I put the book out, but I always wanted it to have a home with the press. So I'm really, really excited that it's getting this like second push. It gets to reach more people, and I'm super stoked about how it looks. I think it's fucking beautiful. Like the cover art coming from someone who's been a reader of mine for so long, really makes it just feels very fucking magic, So I'm really happy about that iteration. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's really cool, so for everyone who's not aware, at Revolutionaries, we like to work with as many like artists who are within the community of whoever the author is, right? If at all possible. So this was the perfect opportunity for us to put out a call and be like, hey, all of Clementine's followers, I'm sure heaps of you are creative and artistic. Let's see what you've got. And we got so many amazing artists coming to us with even someone who does stained glass windows, doing like pitching a book, like some really cool like concepts. And I was like, I wish we could just do like a cover, in the future, maybe a cover from each artist. But definitely when I saw Charlotte's work, because there is like, in Fucking Magic, there is like this religious undertone.
Interesting, yeah.
So then when I saw that image, I was like, okay, this is, even though I don't think it was originally like a religious image, right? But there's something about it. I guess it's the wings and the crown and the sword. Like there are so many different elements that are just like, I don't know. And because it's all patchwork together, it feels like, because Fucking Magic is like a patchwork of your life, right? And it looks so, it also then reminds me of zines and like cut and paste kind of style. Yeah. It's like, okay, it wasn't what I didn't have any expectation, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And I was like, okay. And then when you said you liked it, I was like, okay, I think we're onto something. And when Charlotte, thank you, Charlotte, if you're watching, showed me the red cover. So she sent like heaps of different options with colors. And when I saw the red, I was like, oh my gosh. And then the pink font, like, come on. It's just you. So I'm so stoked that it's interesting because like you become so familiar with the words on the page, right? So then how does that translate into a visual identity? It can sometimes be quite different to the energy inside the book.
Totally.
So anyway.
Covers are really hard. Covers are really hard and often don't really, or like authors don't always feel 100% about them. But I feel like with this, it's really beautiful. And I think that idea of like trauma recovery as like a spiritual quest, like an underworld journey that I'm going on, and like, the different things like shooting out of her eyes, like she's been like transformed through the work. But then she's wearing the leopard print.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is also just
she's still a trashy
me,
queen. Like, yeah. It's iconic for sure. And her heart being like the centerpiece as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's got like nails through it. It's got barbed wire, but then it's got like, is it pearls? I think it's got like surrounded by little pearls. Like it's like that is so it, because you're kind of like through your writing, you're saying like, this is my heart. Like, yeah, it's pretty much it. But like, also I'm adorning it with like the most beautiful things.
Yeah.
Man,
Very
we're
happy
getting
with
deep into
it.
this cover. Yeah, welcome to book cover chat. That's all, guys. Thank you. That's been 5 minutes. So yeah, super stoked, and thank you to Charlotte. It was a great process, so I'm stoked on that. So speaking of covers, all right, let's segue to the fucking magic zines. Walk me through that whole process. Like, how did you even come up? Like, okay, let's start small. How did you first come to writing zines? I'm super curious about how that came
Okay.
about.
Okay. So when I was literally 12, so like 1999, my mother gave me a book. She is a feminist professor, and she often got books for girls that she would give to me. And definitely this book was like age inappropriate for a 12-year-old. It was definitely not meant to be for a 12-year-old, but it was called A Girl's Guide to Taking Over the World, and it was a collection of zines from the 90s. I was like, what is this? And I opened it up and I discovered what zines were, but like immediately, like zine culture has always been a culture in which women and girls talk about taboo subjects that are like heavily censored. And so at that time in 1999, when I was 12 years old, like, first of all, I knew that I was queer and I had known I was queer for like 2 years. And I was like very much in the closet and very much like stressed about that. And then simultaneously, I was being sexually abused in my family, and there's incest in my family. And this was also something that was not allowed to be talked about or known. And in this book, A Girl's Guide to Taking Over the World, like clearly my mother had not read it before she gave it to me. But in it, these writers were talking about both of those things. Like there were queer women talking about queerness, and there was incest survivors talking about incest. So I was like, my mind was blown. But I was basically like, there is a place where you can talk about these things, and it's called zines. And so I became obsessed and was like completely just like really wanted to get into this. I found the internet was like really new back then. And I found out about a magazine called Broken Pencil Magazine that is like a magazine that still exists in Canada that basically like reviews zines. So you can just like contact them and you can like write to the zine stores and like order zines in the mail. And so like I started to do that where I made my first zine. I got my mother to photocopy it like at her university, but she swore she wouldn't read it. And again, I don't think that she did. And because and I was talking about all this stuff, and then she just like gave it back to me, and I like was trading it in the mail, and so I basically just started doing that, and then I did it through every chapter of my life, like in every iteration of who I am. I was always making zines in some form or another, and I was always finding ways to photocopy them. And like during my crazy years of being like street involved and like really in sketchy situations, I made zines through all of those chapters. And I would like do stuff like I didn't have a computer, so I would like write zines literally by hand. And like very carefully like cut out the writing and glue it on, and like I always just found a way to do it. Like zines gave me this ultimate freedom where like because it is punk, because it is not meant to be perfect, it felt accessible to me that I could just do this myself, I could just enter into it myself. And so doing that over like many years, developed a bit of an audience. Like I had an underground kind of following where there's people who knew about my work. And then Fucking Magic was, a later zine series that I started when I was 30. But it's a lot of looking back over my 20s and that process of going from like crazy street involved alcoholic through like getting sober and trying to build a life for myself. But yeah, like through every chapter of my life, zines have always been there. And now it's like a big part of my job. And I think that it's so important because we need underground writers and thinkers. We need stories that are not just, super polished and coming from, experiences that are like taboo or that we're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. That's okay. Wow. I think that's so amazing that at such a young age you were able to like tap into a whole culture, because it wasn't just that you were like sitting by yourself being like, I'm going to write. It's that you were engaging with other writers and other, it was just this whole idea of this kind of reciprocal economy of like exchanging your art. And it's hilarious and kind of foreboding and telling that your mum like photocopied the zine and didn't even look
Yes.
at it.
And didn't even look at it. And like, for those who are aware of the saga of my story, like last summer my mother threatened to sue me for writing about sexual abuse in my family, even though I've never named her and I've protected her identity and I changed my own name. She threatened to sue me. And like, one of the pieces of writing that I did about that is just about the craziness of the situation, because she's the one who raised me to be a writer. She's the one who gave me the book that showed me that it was possible to tell the truth about incest in writing, and that not only should I write it, but I should publish it. And then she went and she photocopied it. So technically my mother published like the first writing on incest that I ever did, because I was definitely talking about that. I was talking about incest in that zine, which was called Glitter Duck, because I was 13 years old, you know? And it had like a duck on the cover.
This is, okay, like it is wild. Like you would normally watch a TV show that's this level of ridiculous and be like, no, that can't
Yeah, it doesn't
happening.
seem, it's too much. Yeah, it seems fake.
Yeah. And it's really, I find it very ironic that she has the position that she does and the education that she does. And I find, interestingly, it's the most educated people that are actually the worst.
Totally.
Especially like the institutionally educated people who hold that power.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wild. So like to learn that about you, it just added this whole other layer of like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's really crazy. And the level of hypocrisy, because my mother is not just a professor, but a feminist scholar, you know? Yeah. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy around, and it's something that I'm interested in, and I definitely have a book in me about this at some point, but it's like, there is a thing specifically about families where there is abuse, in particular sexual abuse, and then there is like this powerhouse feminist mother who is not intervening and not protecting her child. And like, I've heard this story from like multiple women, and I'm like, this is like a very specific kind of trauma, and we need to talk about it. Like, it needs to get talked about. So I feel like in fucking magic, I'm starting to talk about this a little.
Yeah. It's like it's the taste of what's to come.
Yeah.
It's kind of laying the groundwork, I guess, because within fucking magic, it covers a lot of ground of almost all of the areas that you write on, which is really interesting. So if anyone wants to like be like, who is Clementine? Like, this is the perfect book to be like, okay, wow. Firstly, they get to know you personally, but also they get to explore all these ideas and concepts with you. What I find really interesting about your work is that you're constantly in the need of like having to come up with words and terms to describe different things and different ways of writing. So from an editing perspective, this was interesting for me, because I was like, I had to figure out sometimes what you're trying to say. So maybe even if we just talk about like polyamory and then the language around that, can you speak a little bit to that? Because I found it, when I was editing, I was like, okay, there's a lot of they going on and their partner and their partner's partner. And I'm like, I need a little, like a graph, like a table, like a grid to know who's being talked about here.
Totally. It's so challenging, and writing this was actually very challenging. There was many moments that were challenging for this issue. I did my best. But part of their like artistic style of fucking magic, and often my more like prose literary nonfiction, is that like the characters are not very strongly defined. Like, they don't have names. They're referred to in terms of their relationship to me, but they don't become this like separate character. It's just like the way that I write in this type of writing. And I don't name anyone, and it allows me to offer like a level of anonymity to the characters who are in fact real people, right? And so that's first of all. So I don't name anyone, and I don't really want to. I feel like it's clunky in the writing to just like solidify them into a character. And by being like my partner, like when you're polyamorous, saying my partner is actually not totally identifiable. It could be multiple people, especially over the course of the book. It could be multiple exes, multiple people, because I'm possibly dating multiple people like at any given time, right? Like I usually have like multiple partners. So there's that. But then there's the situation of non-binary, like lots of non-binary characters, right? So when you're not using names and tons of the people in the story use they, them pronouns, and then you're also talking about like multiple relationships and multiple people together, and you're using a plural they as well as a non-binary they, sometimes it gets like a little bit of a mouthful. So I did my best, but there were pieces where I was like, damn, this is confusing. Like,
yeah, it's good though, because I think from an editing perspective, it was a challenge for me, because I was like, okay, because it would be too easy as an editor to go in and be like, wrong, delete, let's change quickly, because you just want to go like, well, but you really have to, especially with your book, because it's already been published before, right? And I spoke about this on the post that I made the other day, but because it's been published, it's not up to me to rewrite the book, to be like, oh, we're going to do a massive rewrite, because people have already read this, right? So we're not looking to totally change it. And also because you are a fantastic writer with a really strong voice and identity, it's like, we have to preserve that. So I felt like an archaeologist. I was like, like getting my little brush out and being like, okay, what does this word actually mean? And what I appreciate about that is that it forced me to really think about what you were saying. And I think a lot of books these days are written so people can quickly, it's just like the TikTokification of books, right? It's like, you've got to try and be able to consume and understand things. And when you try and make a book that everyone can understand in the easiest, like you're speaking to like the lowest denomination, no offense to the world, but like you're trying to hit the biggest market, then you're just creating like this homogenous kind of book that's, they all kind of go the same way. So this one for me, I was like, oh my gosh, they, them, like, of course, pronouns are like, books have always had gender neutral pronouns. Like it's super common to be like they, them, but when you've got multiple they, them, and then their partners and their partner's partner, and their partner's partner talk to me, and I'm just like, where it's fun because it's all correct. It's just like you really have to sit and be like, and I guess that's interesting because that's what polyamory is. It's like you really have to sit with the multiplicity of the situation. There are multiple people involved, and you have to kind of balance those relationships and negotiate them constantly, which is super interesting.
There's two things that I could say about that. One is like, it's been said about me multiple times in reviews of my work that I like respect the reader in the sense that like I actually don't hold the reader's hand a huge amount, and I assume a certain level of intelligence in the reader and also a certain level of responsibility in the reader to like figure out what I'm saying. And that I don't do all the work for them, and that I actually feel like this is an important value of mine to actually trust that readers can read my work in context of my body of work, and like in context of like whatever cultural container I'm writing out of, And then the other piece is that I think that one of the radical things that I do is that I really don't, when I talk about polyamory, when I talk about queerness, when I talk about my life, like I do not start from the position of I'm abnormal and I'm going to explain my abnormal life to you normal people who don't actually understand what I'm talking about. Instead, I act like this is perfectly normal because to me and in my life, it's perfectly normal. And I know there's tons of queers who are like LOLing because it's like, the mental gymnastics of that many they thems and all their they them partners is like such a fucking real phenomenon that we like are actually really used to and like really familiar at navigating. But when we are in spaces where like polyamory is less normal, where like non-binary people are less common or whatever, then it becomes like really confusing. And so there are parts of the fucking Magic book that I almost feel like I'm leaning into the stereotype of being this like polyamorous bisexual with like all of these partners and all of these memoirs and like I don't know, kind of having fun with it.
It works. Well, that's the beauty of fucking Magic, is that like it's like when you watch a good documentary, you're like, I am so absorbed in this culture. Like for me, this was my first real look inside polyamory. And like you deep inside like trauma-informed polyamory and all these other different things. Like, sure, you can be surrounded by queer culture, but like, do you ever really dive into it from like a fully different perspective where you're living and breathing it? No, you don't. You see it as like something separate. You're watching it sensationalized on the telly. But this one was like, oh, this is real. And because you write with such heart, it's like, oh, I am Clementine for a hot minute. Like, okay, this is what it feels like to be in someone else's body. And that's the power of writing. And that's what I was thinking, like, yeah, I can see myself in like being a cocksucking bisexual and like scissoring. And it's like, I never thought I would. And it's not that I see myself doing those things, but I see like, you write in such a way that is like, well, I was there. And it was fun. Like whatever the emotion was, like I was there and I felt it. And that's like the power of writing. And we're losing that in society. Yeah. And that's why we're having to be here with you on the periphery, because that's where the good stuff is still happening.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And I mean, like I've had many readers, and I think it's part of my ethics of just sort of being like, yeah, I'm not interested in creating new hierarchies, right? Like I don't actually think there's like a specific way to have sexual and romantic relationships that is superior to others. It's like everybody do their own thing, right? And because I have that general attitude of just, tolerance and respect across difference, I tend to have a lot of audience members. Like, I obviously have tons of audience members who are inside the same culture as me and totally get it. And then I have tons of other people who are in my audience who read my work who are like straight, monogamous, and like totally from a different culture and like come into that. And yeah, like it's like they, instead of it being this freaky thing, it's just like presented as normal. And because the writing is so intimate, like it enters into it in an intimate way. And I think that's good. Like, I think I have read so many stories from the perspective of heterosexual monogamous people that I can imagine what that's like. Like,
Yeah. Easily. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's such a cultural norm, right? So it's good that you're able just to be like, well, this is my cultural norm, and it's totally
exactly.
different.
Everybody here is they, them, and there's like 30 of them, so you're just gonna have to figure it out.
That's chill. Yeah, you figure it out. You do the hard work. Yeah, because I've got it figured out, obviously. So how do you go about? Do people that you know ever read your work and go, "Hey, that was about me, and I'm upset"?
So the entire fucking magic, all the pieces in there, except for things about my exes. That's my one ethical questionable area, but all the pieces that are about dates, partners, lovers, sex scenes, all of that has been I received consent for publishing it. And so this was a practice that I kind of had to figure out and navigate as a literary nonfiction writer who writes like very intimate stories, especially in fucking magic, because I write a lot of sex stories. And I also write a lot of stories about like very intimate relationship, like attachment stuff, polyamory stuff. And so I got into the practice quite early on, actually. Like when I was younger and I didn't have as much of an audience, like I never really thought about this because I was like, no one who's ever going to see it is going to know. But then by the time my career got big enough, it's like, oh, people actually can figure this out sometimes, even though I'm not naming people and I'm never like describing people in identifiable ways. But it happened early on, actually, with the first issue of fucking magic. I'll just say that I was at a zine fair and somebody bought the zine and wrote to me and was like, wow, this zine is really cool. And then like finished the zine and then wrote to me again and was like, I know who the person is in like one of this very romantic sex scenes in the zine. And like they were just like, I'm not, like basically rescinded their interest in being my friend because they knew who I was sleeping with. And so I realized, I was like, okay, like what makes something identifiable could not necessarily be what you think. Like actually it was a cup in the story. It was a specific cup. That the cup that says slut on it, if you remember. But anyway, I got given this cup and it's like all like, it has a lot of meaning inside the story because I feel accepted in my like sexuality and I feel like it's like romantic and I'm feeling seen. But this cup is so specific that the person was actually able to identify who it was. And so from there I was like, okay, I really need to think about this because the things I'm saying, even if I try to hide the information, could be found out. And so people have the right to kind of be aware of that, So I started to do this practice where I would write the stuff, and I used to, with fucking magic, I put out the zine every 3 months. So like during those 3 months I would be writing it and I would be like gathering up the writing, and then at the end I would publish. So I would go through a practice of contacting and being polyamorous, contacting like whoever I was sleeping with at that time, whoever I was writing about, and asking them like, do you feel comfortable with me publishing this, and is there anything that you would want me to change? And so like for the most part people were super down, and it's actually something that I deeply, deeply love and respect about my current serious partners, is that they let me write about them in this way. And I feel like it's this type of intimacy as a writer who writes nonfiction that is like so important to me. Like some of my best writing is this like really intimate, vulnerable writing, often about like attachment and sex. And it takes a lot to be brave enough to like, even if it's anonymous, to be like, yeah, I'm going to let you bear that to the world, So I really appreciate it. And I feel like, yeah, of course, there's a few pieces in there where I needed to process a breakup or I needed to process writing about an ex. And in those cases, like, I didn't feel like it was a really good idea to contact them and send them the piece and be like, I'm publishing this. So I didn't do that, but I still maintained a commitment to trying to be like as vague as possible around who it is that I'm actually talking about, so that very little people, if anyone, would be able to figure it out. Like, that's always my goal. But it can get messy. And people don't really
Right.
talk about this element of nonfiction writing, but yeah.
Yeah. Or because, yeah, that was a very personal question for me as well, because I write about my life, but I
Yeah.
often fictionalize it to kind of get around that, because then it's like,
Yeah.
so I guess my next question in relation to that is, when you write about these moments, do you try and get as close to the truth as possible? Or like, how much do you kind of change things?
I mean, okay, so I'll start by quoting Lydia Yuknovich when she says, what happened to you is true, everything else is fiction. So I do believe that when you construct a narrative of any kind, like whether you are writing a book or whether you're just telling a story to your friend, like, you are constructing a narrative out of what happened, right? Like, the true objective facts of what happened, they do exist, but like, the way we tell a story shapes the story and the way that the listener is relating to the story based on like what is left out, what is focused on, what is emphasized. And so I'm definitely constructing the narrative. And this is important as well because there's like this sort of like sexist, misogynist approach around women's literary nonfiction where it's always described as confessional. It's always described as like diary like, actually, this idea that it's sort of this like unmediated process of like the experience is just moving out of me and you're receiving it, and so therefore there's no actual skill, craft, or art involved like in that framing, right? Because you're not an artist who is crafting something, you're just like sharing raw material, which is obviously absurd because like my actual diary is not like what I publish in my zines, right? And so it's obviously not true. And like all narrative, regardless of which personal stories you're drawing on, are always shaped and crafted. Like, and so, but all that being said, it's a true story. Like, pretty much everything that I'm writing in there, like, literally happened. I might, like, I have creative license around like how I want to tell that, what I want to focus on, like what's going in and out of that, but I don't like invent details that didn't happen, and like add them in. Everything I say happened.
That's so interesting, because it does read as a diary or a confessional, but I think there's a great skill in that. Like, I think that's the disconnect. It's like people say confessional or diary, journal entry, thinking that, you know, you've just sat down and word vomited onto a page, but actually to get that effect where it doesn't, because I've read you know, as a publisher, I have read submissions that are literal, like, straight excerpts from diaries, and it's a lot messier, and it's a lot, you just cringe the whole time, and not in like this will soon be cool art. It's just like, this is too personal, and you're not really sharing anything of value to a reader.
Yeah, like the idea is to give the reader the idea that they are in that intimate access, that they are like experience, which is the same for fiction too, right? Like, you're trying to give the inner world of the experience to the reader so that they feel like they are taking part of that experience. And yeah, it is like crafted, but you're giving, yes, for sure, you're giving that sense of like, I don't know, somebody described fucking magic as like a best friend, like sharing like really juicy gossip and secrets, like this kind of energy.
Yeah, well, I can imagine also receiving like a zine of fucking magic in the mail would feel very intimate, and just like a letter just for someone. So that's really cool. When you were writing the zines, so there's 12 of them in fucking magic, and so you said you put out one every 3 months. Was that like essentially like a full-time job during that period of time? Like, that seems like a lot of work to be putting in, because they're not just small zines.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect a book to be. Can you imagine? Well, you could imagine, because you physically handled the zines, but like, this is just 12 zines. That's a lot of writing.
It's a lot of writing. So at that time period, I was at the beginning of jumping into claiming writing as my career. And so like, I had been writing and I had been making zines and I even had like published some books, but they were it was framed by everybody that this was like a hobby. Obviously, this is something I do on the side. This is some weird like punk thing that I do, not like I'm a real writer, you know? And when I was 30, I read The Chronology of Water by Lydia Yuknavitch, and it really changed my life, and it caused me to be like, no, I really do actually need to choose this and pursue it with everything that I have. And so I decided to do that. Oh no, I lost my train of thought. What was the question that you're asking me? Sorry.
It's like a full-time job, right? Like, so
Oh, it's like a full-time job. Okay,
Yeah,
I remember. So basically, when I was 30 and I had made the decision to become a writer, I was like trying to figure out how to do that, like how to be an independent writer who is trying to make money off of writing. And so I was trying different strategies, and I knew I needed to be like writing a lot, producing a lot, publishing, and like trying to make money. And so I just created this as a container. I very often in my life have written a Persian series. Like, this is so like it dates me so much because I feel like this isn't really a thing anymore, but like fucking magic is a Perzine, and a Perzine is a subgenre of zine that is like personal and is like literary nonfiction writing about your life, and it's a whole genre, and they come in series. So like I always describe it as like with bands, like the band is like a creative container, and then each album is like a creative container that that band has. Like the Perzine is the same thing, where the zine itself can be seen as like the band. So there's certain creative decisions that are made that are all of these zines are going to be in conversation with, but then each zine is like standing on its own as like its own creative piece. And usually like they don't have to be read in order. They can stand alone, but they also create this larger narrative, right? And so I was like, let's try to, write a Perzine like I've always done pretty much in most stages of my life, but like really do a lot of writing and try to sell it, And so that was fucking magic, and it was like really successful. Like I would go around to stores literally with like a suitcase full of zines and just like try to hustle my zines to the stores and like be really cocky with them. Like they'd be like, we don't sell zines, and I would be like, you're gonna want to sell this.
Oh my god. And it
Like
worked.
I would be really cocky, and I would just like slide it across. I'd be like, trust me, read this. And they would open it up and start reading like some crazy sex scene, some crazy like high like intensity stuff in the scene. And so they would be like, you know what, like we'll take it. And it really, like, it always sold super super well. And it was the first time I started making money off zines. Like I was like, okay, I'm actually making money off zines. And so yeah, I did it for years, and it wasn't really intentional that I was going to close the series, but it literally closes like right at the beginning of the pandemic. And then I was canceled like after that. So it really is this like hard line of like the before and after versions of me.
Right.
And like at the end of this, it's so hopeful, and I have like no fucking idea what is coming. Like what is about to come is so fucking bad.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, like
Did the timeline line up pretty well with your Saturn return?
This actually starts at my beginning of my Saturn return.
Yeah.
And I guess it kind of ends like a little bit after my Saturn return, because I'm like at the beginning of my 30s.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I was working on this during my Saturn return, and I'm like, I see a lot of the themes. I see this,
I think it is.
like playing out. Yeah, because it feels like in the Saturn return, right? It's like when you become an adult. You like transition into adulthood, and it feels like all the themes and that story that you just told of like you're becoming a real writer, or like a full-time writer. That, and then everything goes tits up after. But if you look at the if you look at the book, that's kind of the pattern of your life. Like
I know.
No offense, but like
I know.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad you know. I don't have to point that out. But like in the book, you're like, oh, everything's shit. Everything's terrible, what the heck? And then you come around and you're like, I love myself, everything's perfect. And then literally the next chapter is like, what the fuck? Something terrible has happened again. So it's like this cycle, but that is life, right? That's the beauty of it. Like that is so relatable, because you go through, like you start off on ground zero being like, nothing can get worse than this. And you go all the way up, you're like, life is great. And then you get down lower than before, you're like, this is the new rock bottom. Like, so it makes sense that you got cancelled, right?
Yes.
I'm curious, when did you start writing on Substack, and how did that change your writing career?
Honestly, yes. I have like lots of feelings about this. I was originally on Patreon for a few years, and basically like when I was becoming a full-time writer, like I really was like, okay, like I'm prepared to be poor, but like I need to figure out some kind of consistent means to like pay my rent. So Patreon, I don't think Substack existed yet, and Patreon was pretty cool in terms of just like you need to cover your basic expenses so that if sales fluctuate, you still can pay your bills, right? So I had that. But I feel like Patreon was a very sort of like closed platform that it's like only people who use Patreon look at it. So I feel like that influenced my writing in a particular way. Like I was writing, I knew that the writing I was doing on there was pretty private and wasn't really being read by a huge amount of people. Then when Substack came around, I could really tell that this was the direction things were going. Like it was really popular. A lot of writers that I respected were writing on it. And I was like, I think more people see it because it's also like you can sign up for the free version or the paid version. And it's like a website, not just like inside Patreon. So I decided to make the switch. And then I've been writing pretty consistently for a couple years now. Like I had a Substack, but I also had my Patreon. And then when I made the switch is when I finally was like, okay, I'm going to like write here consistently. And I do feel like it's been shaping my writing in a very specific way. I feel like I have a totally different kind of tone on Substack. Like it leads me to a certain kind of writing that is more philosophical, political. I'm making points about stuff. I'm Clementine Morrigan, so I can't stop telling personal stories about my life. Like obviously throughout it, it's still there. But it's more like that. I feel like this writing in Fucking Magic, like for people who are more familiar with my writing, post-cancellation, post-2020, where I'm sort of seen as this like controversial, like leftist hot take girl or whatever the fuck people think about me, like that though, like the tone that I take on in my writing is quite different than Fucking Magic, actually. And like Fucking Magic is like a way more vulnerable, way more like intimate, personal type of writing that I actually want to get more into. I want to return to it more because I feel like there's aspects of my writing style that really don't come through in the kind of mode that I've been doing on Substack. And I'm currently trying to write a book that I'm trying to sit down and write it. So it's like, I'm not basing it on zines, but I want it to be in this same like vibe. I want it to be this deeply vulnerable, intimate, sexual, like romantic, heart-wrenching vibe, but me at 38. Like me after all of that and like all the lessons that I learned and the extreme power that I embody now, like what does that kind of writing look like? So yeah, the book is called the Ontology of Pussy. That's what it's called.
That is an amazing title. You have a way with concepts, man. Like that's okay. I can see it now. Like,
I've just started writing it, but like I have the whole concept and like, yeah, I'm excited. And I'm excited. I think that this Fucking Magic re-release at this time when I'm sort of like turning back to this style of writing has been really nice, and revisiting this book and like reading it in the new version. I was like, damn, like I forgot I wrote all of this. And like, there's so much in here from like this younger version of me who is really planting the seeds and figuring out like who I'm going to be in this next iteration, you know?
Absolutely. And it's cool to see the patterns. It's like, oh, there is a pattern. But that's good because it's all there. And that's why I think it's like the foundational book for the rest of your career. It's like, this is it. Everyone will come back and be like, oh, this is where you can see where it all is starting to begin. Okay, in regards to cancellation, so that happened in 2020, right?
Yes.
And do you feel that the current, like the global crisis at the time really laid the foundation for like people being super cancelable or people looking for people to cancel?
Yeah, I always joke like class of 2020 is like a really big cohort in terms of canceled people, but I mean, there is a way in which, like, for my fans who are interested in my work on cancel culture, there's a way in which Fucking Magic is actually, like, a really important book for that journey. I'm talking about it in a more subtle way in the beginning of the book, but I feel like people who understand about cancel culture will be able to see what I'm doing and what I'm saying, because I was really, really scared to talk about it explicitly. And so I would talk about it in other ways, looking at themes around like what makes a person disposable, what is forgivable, like how can you feel safe when you know that you have a crazy fucked up past like I do. How do I know that I'm still like worthy of belonging? And there's a lot of this like grappling with shame around my like crazy trauma past. And it's also the love story of me and Jay, which is like a cancellation love story because, and I don't know how much of this I actually say in Fucking Magic, but I feel like it's alluded to a lot. But basically, like when I first met Jay, people were like, you know, gossiping and talking shit. And when I added them on Facebook, people were like, one person slid into my DMs and was like, this person is bad news. Like, people are talking shit in Montreal. Like, you should stay away. So I unfriended them and wouldn't be their friend for like a few years. And then around the time that I started writing fucking magic, I was going through this big, like, transformation, Saturn return, differentiating from 12 steps and being like, what's mine and what's like this recovery world, and like what don't I agree with, and like figuring that out. Also differentiating from like this dysfunctional social justice culture and being like, what is mine, what is in alignment with my integrity, and what is like a trauma fear response where I'm just being submissive. And I started to realize that it was like totally not in alignment with my principles to treat people like this, because my greatest fear was everybody canceling me and rejecting me and being like, you're irredeemable because you've had this fucked up past, so like, too bad, you're not allowed to have a future. So realizing that like I was hearing rumors about people and I was just totally cutting them out of my life, not because I thought anything about them, but because I was scared of the social consequences, I realized it was cowardly and it was really out of alignment with my integrity. So I started to apologize to people and sort of just like let them know, like, sorry, I was like that towards you. And Jay was one of these people, and I reached out to Jay, and it was literally, I was writing the first issue of fucking Magic, and I was going to visit Montreal, and Jay lived in Montreal, so Jay was like, okay, like, I accept your apology, let's hang out. And that was like the beginning of like our fucking whole crazy love story where I ended up moving to Montreal. And then years later, when I was brutally canceled, like, Jay was someone who was like a rock for me, obviously. Like, I had chosen a partner, which is crazy because it's like so much of the zines fucking magic is me being like, can I trust my friends? Can I not trust my friends? How do I feel safe in relationships? And to know that after this book was finished, like a couple months after the last piece of writing in this book, every person, all the friends that I talk about in the zine, every person in my social life abandoned me because of insanely bizarre, vague things that were being said about me online. And it's like, so of course I couldn't fucking trust anyone in my life because I was living in this intense culture of disposability where I was watching these rituals of cancellation happening all the time, and I was traumatized from it. But I had chosen a partner who I knew it was a risk to choose this partner because I knew I was like, I'm going to be canceled just for being with Jay because people are talking shit about Jay. But then I got canceled for my own bizarre reasons, and Jay was just like, absolutely fucking not. Like, I'm not going to abandon my partner. And so, you know, so both of us are fucking canceled, and now we have a podcast called Fucking Canceled. And
yeah. And it seems pretty damn successful. So like,
yeah.
thanks, cancelers. Look what you've done.
Yeah. I know they did not. Hard. Yeah.
But you can see it.
Sorry. Yeah.
You lost everyone. Well, everyone.
Almost all my friends. Almost all my friends from like all areas of my life.
Have any of them come back?
A few, and people have apologized to me and made amends. Very few, though, out of like how many people did it, you know? And a lot of people just sort of don't acknowledge it. Like, it's like they unfollowed me when every single other person in my life was unfollowing me and calling me out. And then like sometimes like years later will just like quietly like refollow me. And I'm just like, you know that I totally noticed like that everybody did this. And so I'm like, if you feel some way about it, it would really be nice if you would say something. Especially when people took part publicly. I'm like, if you said shit publicly and now you realize that it was wrong, you should fucking say so publicly. Like, that is what it means to take responsibility and to balance out the scales of the harm that you have caused by slandering me on the internet. So, whatever. But most people are not that emotionally mature and don't, you know, they just sort of do whatever and then are like, I don't want to be accountable for this. But
wow.
Yeah, but in the later part of fucking Magic, in some of the later writing, I think there's even a piece maybe called Cancel Me, or like, I know there's a piece that's called like The New World Now, and I'm talking about, like, I'm starting to get braver. I'm starting to talk about how I don't believe in punishment, and I think that it's very dysfunctional the way that we're treating each other. And I remember feeling like, because the zine was a paper zine and it had lots of readers, but it had less readers. It had hundreds of readers instead of like thousands of readers, right? If I'm just publishing out a zine and not putting it online, less people will read it. So it made me a little more brave to say these like more explicit things about cancel culture that I was not yet ready to say on the internet. And then I became ready to say it on the internet.
Isn't it interesting though? Because I still find that with books, you can still get away with a lot of different stuff in books. Like, because most people don't actually engage critically with the text. And that's like the foundation of our issue with what I see with a lot of cancel culture. People aren't actually engaging critically with whatever the incident, the thing is, right? So if you've said something wrong, people aren't actually sitting with it in its full context, in its cultural context as well, and being like, what's actually being said here? And is it actually morally wrong, or do I just disagree with it? So when you put it in a book, as if anyone's actually going to go read it,
I know.
aren't, like, they're looking for quick little things they can find on the internet so they can prove their own worth by canceling someone.
Like, so none of my readers, none of my haters actually read my work. None of my haters actually like engage critically or say anything of substance about anything that I've ever said, you know?
Yeah. It's like, let's have a discussion. If you disagree with something, like, why don't you spell it out? Show me the paragraph and let's talk about it.
And, like, you can write your own article about that. Like, you can critique my work. If you have a problem with something I've said or a major disagreement with something I've said, like, you can literally, like, write about it and explain it instead of, like, making up stories about me or just, like, talking shit and, like, throwing mud. I'm like, what is it specifically that you have a problem with? And it's fine because we actually are allowed to have disagreements with each other, and that's what, like, discourse is, and it's necessary. So it's fine, but people never do that. They're just, like, mad.
Because it's not the actual point, is it? It's not actually about...
It's not
actually about what you've said. No, it never is. Okay, speaking of what she said, everyone in the chat, if you want to put your questions in now, we will probably wrap up in the next 15 minutes. And if you have any questions for Clementine that we haven't covered today, it feels like it's been a bit of a rambling discussion, but it also feels just like two book nerds talking about bookish things. So if you have other questions, please put them in the chat. That would be great, because I know there's plenty of you watching. So Clementine, what's next for you? So you're working on the ontology of pussy, of course.
That's what I'm writing right now. The ontology of pussy.
Yeah, and then in your bio it can just be like pussy ontologist. So what else? Because I know you're the type to have multiple burners on.
Honestly, okay, so there's a few things that are going on, yes. Like, I have, obviously, Fucking Magic is just coming out with you guys. I signed a book deal for my Love Without Emergency zine series, are going to be published. Well, I'm going to rewrite them, and it's going to be a very different project, but it's going to be based on the Love Without Emergency and Trauma-Informed Polyamory zines. It's going to be published with Microcosm Press for, like, next year. So I'm going to be working on, like, a rewrite of that book for the next year-ish, starting in the fall. And get that published next year. And then I also have, like, a weird Quebecois book deal happening right now with a small press called Moult Editions Moult Edition in Quebec. And they are actually translating a zine of mine called The Forgotten Art of Fucking into French. And so it's really funny because it's never been a book in English, but it's going to be a book in French. So there's a few book things going on, which is great because I'm in this chapter of, like, really wanting to get book deals and get some legitimacy going on for my underground career. And yeah, I'm also just trying to carve some space because I am constantly doing 10,000 million things, and there's a lot that I do in my job, like, because I do everything. And it's been a long time since I've sat down and wrote a book, just like I am writing this book. And so I'm really trying to just carve a little spaciousness in my writing practice to write the ontology of pussy, because I'm really excited about that. Like, what this story is going to be. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Do you find it, once again, another writer nerd question, but how do you change gears between different writing projects? So when you're doing multiple things in any given week, do you need specific days and times, or can you just have multiple tabs open?
No. I need different days and times, I think. I think I need separation. I do find it really hard because I feel like when I'm diving into a project or I'm writing on certain themes in a way that is bigger than just like an essay where I'm kind of like with a set of themes over a period of time, I find it difficult to switch gears out of that into something else. So I don't necessarily have an answer for that. I try to just like respect the process and be like, maybe that's what is being called to be worked on right now. But yeah, to be honest, like, I'm neglecting my Substack right now because I'm in this other thing with the book, and that feels more present, more real, more important right now. And so, like, switching gears is hard. So I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Yeah, no, but it's true. Like, something needs to give because books are so all consuming, so it's like everything else kind of needs to take a step back. And then when you're not writing books, everything else can come back in.
Yes, exactly.
So I guess it's fortunate that you do have a platform that allows you to do that. Like you have a critical mass of followers that allows you to like maintain interest in your work while you're not actually there.
Yeah, like I try to give them a little to keep them satisfied, you know, but I also try to be like, thank you for also seeing this as a larger project and not just like a transactional one-to-one thing, but understanding that like artists need even time where we're not just producing in order to do our best work. And so like I'm putting out a little less right now because I'm trying to work on something more. Yeah.
Even though to everyone watching, they're like, oh my gosh, you're just publishing a book today. Like
I know, but I'm like
so you're like, oh, actually I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling. Yeah. It's so good. That's the beauty of books. They come in a few years. They'll be like, whoa, how'd you write 20 books? And you're like, well, not right now. I didn't. I wrote it ages ago, guys. Okay, we've got some questions.
Okay.
So, any tips for people who want to publish their first zine?
My advice is to literally don't overthink it and literally just do it. I still lay out my zines with scissors and glue in a method that I learned from a book that's called Stolen Sharpie Revolution. And I believe that this book is still available. If you look online, you can probably order it. Like, I make quarter-size zines that are very small and cute, and like there's just a specific way that you glue the pages in order to make them go into a book like that, and that's just always how I've done it. So like there's little technical skills that you can learn like that, but also be prepared to fuck it up a million times. You will probably make ones where the pages are out of order. Like all of that is going to happen, and it's fine, and that's just part of being a zinester. And like you literally just need to make it and do it. And like people are always just waiting because they want to believe that their writing is going to be good enough or somehow they're going to reach a place and then that's when they're going to be published. And it's like in reality, we learn through the doing. And so you will become a better writer through writing your work and publishing your work. And so that's my philosophy anyway. That's how I did everything. So honestly, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Oh, so easy. Just do it, guys. But I mean, that's the irony, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it is that easy, but it is that hard as well. Okay, so we've got another question. With your reflections on mothers not being proactive in protecting their children, do you find other people who haven't experienced that really push back around the myth that mums would ever do that?
Yeah, I mean, I do find that this is something that culturally we are not fucking ready for, is to talk about women's capacity to abuse. And not even just the idea of women not protecting their children, but the idea that, in fact, taking your child to an abuser is abusive. And women actually, sometimes women are being abused and controlled and they don't have a lot of options. Other times they actually do have a lot more options than we are acknowledging. And actually they do have a responsibility to do everything in their power to remove a child from an abuser. And so not doing so when you can and you actually are not under duress is itself abuse. And I think that we are living in a moment where, you know, we've had all this feminism and we've been like, wow, there's so much violence from men and there's so much work that needs to be done there. And I think that there's a lot of women who have not taken this a step further to reckon with their own capacity for domination, and their own complicity in abuse. And the fact that my mother is a feminist scholar and has done this, I think should be really concerning, that we need to be looking at, you know, what role are women playing in incest and in the perpetuation of child sexual abuse. And so, you know, I haven't found a lot of pushback talking about this. I think, like, I've heard from a lot of women who share similar experiences, who have mothers who were, like, successful, feminist, like, whatever, and still, you know, allowed them to be abused and knew. So it causes me to really want to write more about this and to be like, is this just like a kind of phenomenon that's going on that is not being talked about because of our inability to really actually hold women responsible for our acts of violence as well? And differentiating that, yes, women have less power than men, but adult women have exponentially more power than children. And that is real. So, but I do find that, you know, in the motherhood space, if I take a child-centered perspective and advocate for the developmental needs of children in a way that critiques certain parenting practices, the defensiveness and anger that I feel directed at me is huge, right? And I think it comes from a place of women feeling super overwhelmed and like super overworked and not having enough support in their communities or in their partnerships to actually like raise a child and to meet that child's developmental needs. So they simply feel shamed when we're pointing this out. But like feeling shamed isn't the same thing as being shamed, and we must advocate for the rights of children to have their developmental needs met. And that's not about blaming mothers, but like I think we need to build our resilience to having those conversations and not just emotionally shutting them down because children's developmental needs are like difficult to meet under the current context.
Absolutely. And I think also the problem I guess a lot of people have is that as soon as you start saying, yeah, women are abusive too, then it feels like we start to ignore the fact that men are, so it's like, oh, men are abusive, oh, but women are too. Then it's like, yeah, we need to be able to hold both and be like, yes, both are true without canceling each other out.
And like there's different kinds of violence, right? Like men can enact patriarchal violence, and I think that most violence that men enact is kind of inflected with patriarchy. It very often is, right? But there's other types of violence, right, that women can take part in enforcing and holding up patriarchal violence too, even as they are also victims to it. But women can also do other types of violence. For example, like white women can perpetrate racist violence, right? And so like the idea that violence is only animated through like patriarchy or through gendered violence is clearly not true. Like other things animate violence as well, including racism, including like feelings of possessiveness and desire to control. And we know from men that because men are abused, like little boys are abused and traumatized and taught to like shut down their emotional experience. And so then they grow up to enjoy dominating and humiliating others because of their own experiences of domination and humiliation. And we know that women are dominated and humiliated, and we know that children have less power than women. So it really doesn't surprise me that somebody who has that kind of trauma might also get an outlet over controlling and dominating a child. Like that's just how the cycle of violence works, right? And like, I'm not saying it's exactly the same the way that men and women perpetrate violence. It's obviously different and inflected with many different social systems. But I think women actually perpetrate way more violence than we are currently willing to admit.
For sure. And also, like, I guess we all are familiar if we've experienced like female on female violence or like femme on femme violence, like it's intense. And we've all experienced it, like from the schoolyard onwards. It's there. So it's interesting that we don't talk about it the way that we talk about male violence.
Yeah.
I guess that's something that you can help contribute to, Clementine. So thanks in advance. Solve all of the problems while you're at it. And I'll be here cheering you on. Have all those hard conversations. All right, so we're on to our next question. Thank you, Emma, for that one. So we have, all right, from Laurie, we have, do you have any advice for writers trying to write about experiences like incest who are terrified of people finding out who they're talking about and don't want to ruin the life of who they're talking about?
Yeah, it's really, really hard. And I think that the fucked up thing about cancel culture, like one of the fucked up things about it, is that like it literally does not honor the agency and desires of survivors. And there's a great many people who would much rather speak publicly about what happened to them and don't, because of the fact that they are protecting their abusers from dehumanization or having these like really horrible consequences in their life that the survivor doesn't actually want for them, right? And I totally relate because I literally changed my name so that my family would be less easy to identify. And so that kind of thing is an option. Like you can write under a pseudonym and you could keep it very separate from your life, or you could keep it more like, I basically ended up becoming my pseudonym over time. Like I became more Clementine Morrigan than I was the other name. And so I eventually legally changed my name and now that's my name. But like you could just have it for your writing or, you know, make different decisions around it, but that could make it a bit harder to like locate your family or to find out who they are. But also keep in mind that if your writing blows up and if you're successful, people are stalkers and they are obsessed. And like literally, even though I have publicly said like, please do not look into who my mother is, like I'm being threatened with being sued, like I just want to be able to tell the truth about this, and I don't want everybody trying to figure out who she is. Like everybody's just Googling. It's like related searches are literally like Clementine Morrigan mother, Clementine Morrigan this, Clementine Morrigan that. Like they're stalkers, you know? They're obsessed and they're stalkers and they don't care about your boundaries. And so that is something that you have to keep in mind if you're doing public work, especially on very like personal subjects. But at the end of the day, like you are not responsible for protecting your abuser from what the world like does to abusers, right? You can have a lot of empathy. You can like try to lead with that empathy. You can try to lead with your principles. You can try to talk about it in a way that tries to honor the complexity of intergenerational violence. You know, I do all of that. But at the end of the day, like it's really important to recognize that like if people do find out who my mother is and if she is attacked for this, like that's not my fault or my responsibility, right? And we should be able to tell the truth without being like loaded on with that insane responsibility. And I have found that in terms of my trauma, like telling the truth is the most fundamental and important thing in order for me to not go crazy. Like I actually have to tell the truth about what happened to me. And so part of that truth is telling the truth about my mother. And I try to be like, I'm trying to work towards creating a world in which we can hold these complexities at the same time, right? Like the famous feminist scholar whose work is so important to you is the same woman as the woman who did not protect her daughters. It's not that once you see this, that like, oh, she didn't protect her daughters, that all that other stuff stops existing. Is that you have to find a way of holding it together. And that is what we suck at doing so much. But I think that like, survivors need to write. We need to write about what happened. And so I think that you should. And I think that you should just check in with your boundaries around like what precautions you want to take while knowing that ultimately like it isn't fully in your control what happens.
Very good. Yes. Always, always right. You never know where it may take you. All right. We're on to a question from Brandywin, if I'm saying that correctly. How does it feel to get these book deals after being an underground writer for so long?
It feels great. Honestly, it feels great. And I think I'm really funny as a person because I have just felt, even though I am really successful and I have a master's degree now, like I went back to school, I went to university, I feel like there's this part of myself that is just this sketchy kid, high school dropout, really did not receive proper parenting, was not really prepared for the adult world, who just sort of figured out how to do everything in my own crazy way along the way. And so trying to break into the literary world, like I didn't have imposter syndrome in the sense that I was like, I know that my writing is successful and I know that my writing is good because I know that my readers love my writing and like my readers read it and they buy it and they are interested in it. So like I really don't need to prove anything to anyone because I know my work is doing what it needs to do in the world. So I never felt like I needed that validation, but I did feel this very annoying gatekeeping where stories like mine are just kept out of the mainstream and my style of writing is unusual. And I did not want to have to become exactly like other writers and sort of repress the aspects of who I am that are very like confrontational or raw that people actually love about my writing in order to fit myself into a box. And I also did not understand how to like, I don't know what they do, like how to like present yourself in some way. And so I felt baffled by that. And I mean, the book deals that I've got, like, I mean, in this case, it was like, you guys reached out to me and were just like, wow, we're really interested in your work. And like that, so me just being like, I really hope I can get published, like led to this, which I don't feel like is the normal way that you're advised to do things. Like you're not supposed to lead with vulnerability. You're not supposed to lead with, I don't actually know how to do this, but this is a goal that I have. You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to make moves in secret. And I feel like I'm not making moves in secret. I'm just making moves in public and just being like vulnerable with the fact that I don't know what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And like that's very DIY. And so I'm very happy to find like an independent publisher that is also like a weird little guy out here trying to do things. And we like combine forces and like produce this project. It's like very fucking cool. And it's very fucking weird because it's like I'm pretty famous and like really fucking successful in my career, and I'm like from Canada. I'm a Canadian writer who's like internationally famous, and yet like the press that is publishing me is in Australia. Like it's so weird. Like that's so weird, but whatever, I'll take it. I feel like it's very Clementine to just do it in this very weird way.
Yeah, it's on brand, man. Like
it's on brand.
Yeah. Canada will come last. They're
gonna come last. They're finally gonna realize like what they've been sleeping on. Yeah,
but that's always the way. And I think the nature of your work is so relational, and you're so invested in building relationships, which is why you also put out like, hey, I'm looking for a publisher. Can someone connect me? Can someone tell me? And that's what I read. I was like, hey, she's looking for a publisher. That's me. Oh my gosh. And then for a while I was like, no. I'm sure, because in my mind, I see you probably the way that you know yourself to be, incredibly successful, huge audience all around the world. I was like, surely there would be at least 50 publishers being like, hey, let's roll. Because from a publishing perspective, most people just look for influencers now to publish because they've already got a huge audience. So who cares what the writing's about? So like, hello, here's someone with the same status, with even more of a cult following who is more invested in her like from a financial perspective, it's like, why is no one jumping at this?
It's crazy to me. It's crazy. Like, I think it's because so much of my work is very taboo, and a lot of the topics that I write about are very taboo, and presses maybe don't know how to deal with that or that much level of controversy, but controversy sells. And and I don't know, something like I didn't play the game properly. I don't know.
I think you're playing the game like exactly right though. So I think like when I found out, you got this book deal and then you got another book deal right after, I was like, yes, this is what you need to do to like
build that momentum.
Yeah. And it's like we're part of that now, and I'm stoked. We were the first ones. I'm going to claim that forever.
You did.
When you're mega famous, I'll be like, I was there. I was there, you guys. Okay, great. Enough about that. All right, Zoe, let's see. Would love to know more about your perspective about broader public discussions around incest and child sexual abuse happening lately. Alice Munro, the Menendez brothers, Epstein, etc.
So I'm not sure if I'm familiar with everything being mentioned here, but I mean, generally speaking, I think we need to have a massive reckoning around how normative child sexual abuse is, how normative incest is, and like the sexualization of children as like an absolutely normal and standard thing that is going on in so many spaces, and that everyone has collectively agreed to look away from, collectively agreed to pretend is not really happening or doesn't really matter or isn't really that traumatic to children, and find all of these mechanisms collectively to dissociate from it. And this is happening in so many areas, where so many people who have power and influence actually sexually abuse children or allow children to be sexually abused. And so it's really important, not only because obviously we need to protect the children who are being sexually abused and remove them from the abusive situation, we need to meet the needs of survivors and actually give them the appropriate support for the massive amount of disabling trauma that they have experienced, but also we need to question, like, what influence is this having on society that people with so much power are just out here like violating children in the most traumatic and severe way possible. Like, the level of dissociation that is necessary to do something like that is so extreme that these people are like completely fucked, and then they're out here making decisions and like running society and like, writing feminist theory and doing whatever else. And so we need to have a reckoning with it. I think that my fear is just that it is so hard for people not to maintain the dissociation. So like the way that incest and child sexual abuse works is that it's like this double think where it's like we can know the humanity of the abusers as long as we deny the abuse. And we can know the abuse like only when we deny the humanity of abusers. And so you see that two-side like dissociation happening over and over again. And so what happens is that when we find perpetrators, when the public is like, we discovered perpetrators, we know that sexual abuse is happening, we want to enact the horror of being like, oh my God, child sexual abuse is so bad, so we're going to reject it collectively, and we're going to collectively like scapegoat this person. Even if they really are a pedophile, they're still a scapegoat, because we act as if by hating this person and getting rid of this person, that somehow we've addressed child sexual abuse. But that's just one child sexual abuser. There's many, many more. So what are we going to do about that, And I think that the impulse to dissociate, dehumanize, expel is also like a refusal to take on the responsibility of incest and child sexual abuse and face it and transform it, right? And so we can't stay in this dissociative divide if we really want to reckon with child sexual abuse. And so this is a huge fucking issue that is like very emotionally complex and really beyond most people's capacity. And so we need to find ways of encouraging people to think about it that doesn't rely on dissociation and dehumanization, even of perpetrators who are doing like really fucked up shit, because our failure to fully own that as a human behavior, right? This was a human that did it. That's a human behavior that we are collectively responsible for, that we have a collective responsibility to understand so that we can stop it. And if we can't understand it, we can't stop it, and we won't understand it if we just keep dehumanizing perpetrators. And so ultimately, like, we need to really have a much more complex reckoning around this. And I hope that it's starting to happen. I think it's starting to happen, but I think there's a major risk of just maintaining in the dissociation and not actually challenging ourselves to hold the two realities at once.
Well, it's much easier just to get rid of the problem, which is the person, the perpetrator, than to actually deal with what's actually wrong with society.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, because it's questioning the systems of power. So that's the bigger problem. Okay, well, on our next podcast, I'm sure we'll dive into all of those topics, everyone, because that is just like such a big... everyone thinks that a lot of people think that these issues are just isolated.
Totally.
But it's all the same thing. And that's what I appreciate about your work is like, polyamory. Child sexual abuse. But it's actually like all of these things exist in a bigger sphere of like how we relate, systems of power, domination, control, identity, politics, and then you bring in environment, you bring in veganism. It's all about, it comes down to money, power, control, and these systems of exploitation. And then how we each negotiate these systems and how we choose to like work with them, such as polyamory. That's a tool, and that's a different way of relating. So like, that's what I appreciate about your work. It's like, you could think it's all separate, but actually there's a reason for it all. And then through understanding your personal experience, your story, you can see how everything is interconnected and how everything is needed, which is what, I don't know, it's one of the many strengths of your work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for choosing us as your publisher so that we can bring this book into the world today, which is very exciting. So everyone, please make sure you get your copy. We're going to put up a list and probably start like maybe even a spreadsheet that everyone can add to of bookstores so we can start seeing everywhere that it's stocked. And also we're going to need everyone's help to get stocked in more places.
Yes.
Because essentially bookstores will stock where they think people are going to buy lots of copies. So if you go in and request the book and show the demand, we can get Clementine's book in more stores. And then when she brings out more of her books, they'll go into those stores as well, and we'll start like really building a groundswell. But we definitely need everyone's help for this because independent publishing is an uphill battle, but the publishing world responds to demand. And there's a great demand for this work.
I have so many readers, so I'm like, if they can just go into stores and ask for it, like, I'm gonna get into stores.
And if we coordinate efforts, so I think having like a spreadsheet where everyone's like, oh, I went into this store and they're going to stock it, and everyone, then you'll be like, oh, where can I go in my local area? Oh, there's already a bookstore, I'm going to go there to buy it. I think that would be best. So that's coming up this week. But for now you can get it through our website. You can also get it through pretty much any online store. Like in Australia, it's Booktopia, there's bookshop.org. We're going to put together a whole list. When we find every website on earth that has it, we'll put it on the list because there's a lot. So hopefully it will be able to get to you. And if you see on our website the price in Australian dollars, don't worry, it's cheaper in US dollars. It looks like a really big amount of money, but it's less in US dollars. So it's just the conversion rate. So and everyone who's pre-ordered, almost all of the books have shipped. But also because there have been so many pre-orders, I'm still getting through every day, getting through the next batch. But there should be a pretty quick turnaround. But thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much, Clementine, for coming to your own launch party. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to do to launch the book in person. So everyone already knows where to find Clementine, and you can find us at Revolt on Instagram. We're tagged in a lot of Clementine's posts, so that's how you'll be able to find us. Any last words, Clementine, before we say bye?
Just thank you to my readers. I feel like I am an independent writer who literally wouldn't exist without my readers. Like, it is my readers who constantly buy my work and who believe in my work and who push that work forward, and I have had the opportunity of meeting a lot of my readers through my travels and just like seeing what my work means to people and how much my readers really fucking back me. Like, for all the hate that I get, my readers fucking back me so hard. And that is what gives me the strength and the courage to continue to be this kind of writer who is like brave and in your face and like doing this stuff. So I want to thank my readers, especially my diehard longtime readers who are backing this project. And I think that the time to break out of the underground is happening, and it's only going to happen because of you guys. So thank you. Thank you for believing in this book.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. You'll be able to rewatch this on our Substack and YouTube. I'll send it out when it's ready, and we'll see you in the ether of the internet. Yes, great way to sign off. All right, bye.
Bye, guys.